can be tough to get through, but we'd love to hear from you tonight. If you're calling from outside of our area, give us a shout collect at area code 416-445-1811. If you're calling in the Toronto area, it's 445-1811. First year that this man was appointed the head coach of the Toronto Argonauts, Bob Obilovich, he took his team to the 1982 Grey Cup against the Edmonton Eskimos, and as fate would have it, that's going to be the story again this coming Sunday. But before we speak with Bob Obilovich, let's talk about the road to the Grey Cup, how it was that the Edmonton Eskimos and the Toronto Argonauts were able to pull it all together and get to Sunday's big game in Vancouver. Interesting to watch. Here's Vic Rauter.
The Argonauts had a very slow start out of the gate this season. Ironically, they met Winnipeg in Game 1, and their performance gave little indication of what would come some 19 games later. The Bombers won that initial game 38-30. In their second game of the season, the Argos were dealt a severe blow by James Curry, who leveled rookie quarterback John Congemi with a vicious hit. Curry was fined, Congemi was out, and with a tie, Toronto was still in search of their first win of the year. Finally, in Week 4, Gilbert Renfro got his first start of the season, and the club responded with its inaugural win, which came on the very last play of the game. Hamilton blew a 22-point lead, and the Argos were in the win column. 5 weeks later, revenge for the Tabbies. Quarterback Tom Porras completed 36 passes, the most in the CFL this season, and exposed a weak Argos secondary, 28-25 for the defending Grey Cup champs. Week 17. While Toronto remained weak against the pass, there were some moments of brilliance. Darnell Clash returned this interception 93 yards for a touchdown against Ottawa. Toronto's 2017 win was the fourth in a 5-game streak. And the victory guaranteed the Boatmen home field advantage in the Eastern semifinal. Again, it was against Hamilton, and the star of the game was running back Gil Fenerty, who rushed for 150 yards in a 29-13 win. That set up the Eastern final with Winnipeg, the team that stayed just out of reach throughout the regular season. In the showdown, however, nothing was out of reach for the Toronto defense, which held the once mighty Blue Bombers to only 3 points. Offensively, the Argos took advantage of the few opportunities they had when they were in close, as the club waited for the ultimate time to bring it all together. However, unlike the Toronto Argonauts, the Edmonton Eskimos stormed out of the blocks this season with electrifying force. They unveiled Gizmo Williams, who breezed right into the CFL record books and set the pace for an explosive season. Edmonton racked up 54 points against Calgary. 5 weeks later, 38-28 over Saskatchewan. Wide receiver Brian Kelly tied a CFL mark for career touchdowns, and he became the third player to reach the 10,000-yard mark in receptions. Week 13, the records continued to fall. James Zachary deflected this Dave Ridgway field goal attempt and set the all-time mark for most blocked kicks with 7. And the scoring machine just gathered speed. Week 18, Gizmo got loose again. He went 111 yards for the longest touchdown return on a missed field goal, 49-24 over Winnipeg. The Eskimos became the first team to score more than 600 points and 70 touchdowns in a single season. On to the Western semifinal against Calgary. Matt Dunnigan hooked up with Kelly, who had become the first receiver to pass the 11,000-yard mark by the end of the year. The Eskimos won 30-24. But it seemed like only a tune-up for the final against BC. Just like the Argos, Edmonton also manufactured a dramatic upset. Stingy defense, strong offense led to a 31-7 win and their second consecutive berth in the Grey Cup.
Well, there's the man. Boy, I'll tell you, it's been a strange season for you coming out of training camp. Vic Rauter just pointed out how you got off to a slow start. When did you think maybe you had a half-decent football team?
Well, it was an interesting thing the way it developed, Pat. I think, number one, when we came out of training camp, I felt a lot better coming out of camp with our quarterback situation than a lot of people thought, because I thought John Congemi and Danny Barrett were good enough to win some games with, and you know, they were inexperienced and young guys. And then we were fortunate to make the trade with Ottawa, and I felt real good that we had a good group to build on there. And so that was one step in the building blocks, I guess. And then some of the things that happened that really made us a better team and made us good as it went along was the trades we made, acquiring Tony Johns, of course, in the offseason, and then Darnell Clash and Gilbert and Randy Ambrosi, and you know, those players helped us immensely. And in the dispersal draft with Montreal, we did a great job of evaluating their talent. We picked up a guy like Glenn Kulka and Bobby Skemp, and Matt Finley was a good football player, but we traded him to Calgary to get Willie Pless back into the lineup because of the American-Canadian thing, and then we were playing pretty well, but I still didn't think we had that one ingredient to be the kind of defense you needed, and we changed our scheme a little bit there about the midway mark when we put Sellers in there for Marlon Jones. And then when we put Landry in there, everything kind of fell into place. And from that point on, I thought we could be a good football team.
You know, I'm not sure that yesterday's victory against Winnipeg was sensational. There's no question about it. But I'm not sure you didn't win that 4 weeks ago when you went in there and should have won the football game, but through a set of circumstances, you ended up losing by a point.
We played well enough to win that game, and our players felt that way after the game. Emotionally, we were down because, you know, the effort was there. They just got some great breaks in the fourth quarter with the win. They got a great bounce that instead of a 30-yard punt, it didn't turn into a 70-yard punt, and Tommy threw a sure interception that bounced off our hands and helped them get the winning field goal. And you know, we didn't score from the 2-yard line, things like that, and it was just one of those days. But I did tell our players after that game that not to be concerned with it, that if we can play like that with that kind of effort and intensity, that we had 4 more games and just keep playing them one at a time just like we did there, and we'll get a shot at it. So well, we're there to the last one now. Yeah,
I was talking to you last week, and you sounded particularly confident. You really felt good about going into Winnipeg.
Yeah, we were in a good situation. You know, the Winnipeg team had us excited about playing them. They've got some guys in there that help motivate us, and we knew we were going to be in a minority group by a lot going out there, and we were the only guys in the province of Manitoba that thought we could win. So it was a great situation for us. It was a great challenge. I've always liked that kind of situation. Our players responded in a positive way, and our coaches did a great job, and you know, we proved we were good enough to beat a heck of a football team at home.
Okay, let's go to the telephone right now, Obi, because Mike is standing by in Mississauga. Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, Coach of the Year. First of all, I'd like to ask how they would match up player by player, Edmonton and Toronto. Your blue.
Well, they have a whole lot of experience over our football team, but I think the offensive lines, I think, are pretty equal. I think that they have an edge in their overall receiving core. Defensively, I think both teams are pretty outstanding right now, the way they played in their last week's games. And the kicking game, I think we should have a slight edge. So the way the 2 games went during the season with them beating us at home and then we beat them here, it looks like it's the rubber match, and it should be a great matchup for the Grey Cup.
And, of course, remembering that Hamilton went in there last year and really did a number on them, and I really think that you guys are better defensively than Hamilton was last year. Would you agree or not?
I don't know if that could be the case, Pat, because I thought Hamilton just played an awesome game last year. You can't deny the way they played, and they were emotionally ready to play. I think they caught Edmonton in a bad frame of mind psychologically. I don't think Edmonton was ready to play, and they made some changes on their offensive line that really hurt them, just like our game last week. You know, they have a young guy playing in their tackle, very inexperienced lineman, and you're expecting him to block against guys like Kulka and Bayless and Rodney Harding. That's a big assignment, and that Hamilton bunch last year did a great job. So if we could duplicate the kind of game they had last year, I'd be happy.
Sean is standing by in Toronto. You go ahead, Sean.
Congratulations to winning the Eastern title. I'm an Ottawa Rough Rider fan, so you can appreciate, as being a former coach and player, the problems they're going through. But I'm going out to Vancouver to watch the Grey Cup, and I hope you guys win. And if you guys do, what player, in your mind, will make the difference on your team, either a defensive player or an offensive player?
Oh, that's really a hard question, because anything can happen in a Grey Cup game. Sometimes the unlikeliest guys can be the heroes. I remember in 1976 when we won the Grey Cup here in Toronto with Ottawa, the great game that Tommy threw the last-second touchdown to Tony Gabriel. Billy Hadnaka, and I don't think a lot of people even remember that name, returned a punt for us 80 yards for a touchdown that helped us win that game. So you never know who's going to be the star in a game like this.
I'd say this much, from a Toronto Argonaut point of view, Gilbert Renfro better play well, or there's not going to be too many stars, because you're going to have to move the football. I mean, if if you can't move the football against those guys, I mean, Dunnigan is the kind of a fellow that's I mean, he will move the football.
Well, they've got a lot of tools offensively, very similar to Edmonton. They got a great bunch of receivers.
Winnipeg.
I'm sorry. And they also have great running game, and plus they have the added dimension of having quarterbacks that can run. You know, Tommy's an elusive guy and still pretty nifty at his age, but he's not going to run like these two guys, and that provides another problem for us. And our offense will have to play well like we did last week. Now, maybe not so much as scoring a lot of points, depending on how the defenses are playing, but at least to control the ball like we did last week, because if you have the ball, the other team's offense can't score.
Yeah, and also to have some half-decent field position. Randy from North York, go ahead to Bob Obilovich.
OB, how you doing?
Very good, thanks.
In your opinion, what kind of shape is the CFL in, and where will it be in possibly 5 years?
Boy, that's a good question. You know, I don't think you can bury your head in the sand. Right now we're in some critical times, and I think that the people that are in charge of the league right now have to do a heck of a job from an administrative standpoint. And I think they are doing some things and taking some measures to, you know, keep this league alive and healthy. The most positive thing I think that's really happened this year, I've been involved with the Canadian Football League for a long time. And the competition this year, the parity in the teams and the personnel that's been brought into the Canadian Football League this year in particular has been super. The games on the field could never be better. I've never seen such great competition and parity, and that's going to be a positive thing. I look at our football team, and you look at the number of young guys we have on this team in itself, and there's a lot of other teams in the league in the same boat. You look at Saskatchewan, you know, in teams that are on a building situation. You know, we have guys like Pless and Landry and Bayless and Fennerty and Joyner and Darrell Smith. These guys are going to excite people, and, you know, I think it's really positive. So if we can get the rest of it under control and, you know, do the right things from an administrative standpoint, I think that the CFL can still be around for a long time. But there's a job to be done there.
But you know, though, Obi, you talk about your club and how young it is, and, you know, if it can stay together. To me, that's the key thing. I mean, if people can learn to identify with these great young guys that you've got on the team.
You're absolutely right, and you know, it wasn't until, you know, last year and this year that we started seeing the influx of good talent being available, because the USFL finally went under, and we were able to get some of these players, whereas, you know, we couldn't keep our Grey Cup team together when we won it in '83 because guys had opportunities down south, other guys wanted to go down south. And let's face it, we're never going to compete on the dollar sense with the NFL. There's too large a disparity, and you can't blame a kid for that if he feels he has the ability. But the thing that excites me about our team is all these young guys I'm mentioning, they're all suited for the Canadian Football League. We've done a great job of finding players suited for this style of play. They're guys that want to play in Toronto. They like it here. They're developing a really closeness, a togetherness. If we can get the fans to associate with them, as you just said, then I think that, you know, all things being equal, that you'll see the CFL start to flourish again.
Okay, Jason is standing by here in Toronto. You go ahead, Jason.
I would like to congratulate you on a great season this year. I'm proud to say I was at every game this year. Maybe I can catch a red-eye flight out to BC for the Grey Cup. I was talking to Peter Martin at Olympia football camp this summer, and that's where Bruce Elliott and Chris Schultz played a long time ago.
Right.
He was saying that you give rookies like Bruce Elliott a 2 or 3 year period, almost a trial period, and he looked this year pretty good, and I was wondering what his future is and why he hasn't been snapping on punts from mid-season on.
Well, we used him at the beginning of the year. He took the place of Glenn Keeble, who was a veteran guy that did a super job, but he just didn't do enough other things well enough for us to keep him. And we had a young guy like Bruce that did a lot more in special teams and had all his football ahead of him. And then he got hurt, and he also had a couple of games where he had some problems with the snap, but that was going to happen because he was a young guy. But he does a good job now, and he's very adequate at doing that. But Blaine Schmidt came along so well while he was hurt that we've just left him in there, and Blaine's just developed immensely, and we're really pleased with his progress. And I think what Peter's alluding to is that I feel that a young player like Bruce, we're going to bring him along and find out if he's got the intensity and the courage and the desire to want to play, and he's got to demonstrate that on special teams and show that he's going to play the style of ball we want out of a player. And then I feel that after 2 or 3 years, 3 years maximum, if he hasn't proven and improved to the point where you think he's a legitimate starting candidate, then you better find someone else, because if he's not doing a great job in that respect, then, you know, I don't want to get caught with a bunch of guys that aren't going to, you know, be able to start for you somewhere down the line. So it keeps everybody alert, and when you get to where he can do the job, then you'll feel good.
All right, Jason, thank you for your call. Now, our phone poll tonight. Who do you think will win Sunday's Grey Cup? The Toronto Argonauts or the Edmonton Eskimos? We'd like to have you call us at area code 416-449-2244. And at the end of the program, we'll tell you what most of the fans thought. We'll be back to continue our chat with the head coach of the Eastern Conference champion Toronto Argonauts, Bob Obilovich, right after this timeout. Does that make you a little nervous to look at a guy like Jones, and then on the other side you've got Kelly, and I mean, experience and speed and touchdowns and...
Yeah, it does, to be honest with you. I'm not going to lie.
You know, it's funny, and this thought just came to mind. I can remember one time Ottawa was playing Hamilton, and Ottawa had Tucker and Atkins, who were really quick on the outside, and Hamilton just jammed them right at the line. That might be the solution. Give the guys a club.
Well, you can't now, and the league rules won't allow you to do that. In those years, you could do that, and Ralph Saggio took full advantage of that rule, and Teddy Page was the culprit that was chopping those guys at the line of scrimmage, and I don't think they saw where he was coming from because he wasn't a real tall guy, and he was a real tough little guy, and they did a heck of a job because they had trouble getting off the line of scrimmage that year.
Well, these guys haven't had any trouble getting off, and they sure got off yesterday, too, when they hammered the BC Lions 31-7. Let's go to the telephone, because Brad is standing by in Thornhill. Come on in, Brad.
Hi, congratulations on your season.
Oh, thank you.
The question I want to ask is that over the years, like the last 6 years since you've been here, the average fans per game haven't been that high, 20,000, I believe.
No, it's been higher than that. Our last couple of games this year,
the average is about 26,000 this year.
26? Okay, the question being is that since the Argos are so much improved over, say, the mid-'70s to the late '70s, when they used to draw, what was it, 50,000 people per game, I'm wondering what you think, what's the problem with the fans?
We could get rid of the Blue Jays, that'd help.
That's definitely one of the problems as far as, you know, the competition for the entertainment dollar. The Blue Jays are going on the same time of the year. A big part of our season is still a large part of their season, and I think people are getting a little turned off by, you know, watching games in Exhibition Stadium. It's not an ideal facility for either sport, really. They've made the stadium do for both sports, but it's not ideal for either. And the new Dome Stadium is going to make a big difference for both sports, and particularly football, because it'll be just like it was in BC. Once they got out of Empire Stadium and went into the new Dome, you know, their attendance just skyrocketed. So I'm sure that'll really help our situation. And I just think the other thing is that, you know, maybe we're a well-kept secret here in the city right at the time, especially now with this particular football team. And as we mentioned earlier, maybe when there's more identity with some of these young players, and when people start to appreciate their talents, we'll start getting people back out in larger numbers.
And I'm not going to ask this to Hobie because it wouldn't be fair, but I mean, it just made absolutely no sense to me. They broadcast the Winnipeg-Toronto game, which was the last game of the year. To me, if I was trying to create some fan interest out there. I would televise the early games of the year in the hope that people would identify with the people who were on the field, see what a good product it was, and then come out at the latter part of the season. But that wasn't the way it went. Mike from Toronto is on the line. You go ahead, Mike.
Oh, hello. Bob, good luck in the Grey Cup game.
Thank you very much.
And I was wondering, how do you feel about the possibility of American franchise in the future?
Well, I think that's one of the things that the league is considering, you know, if it's something that they're going to have to go to. But, you know, the Canadian Football League's existed for many, many years under the present format. And, you know, it's been trying for years now to, with the 9 teams that were in the league, to try and get a 10th team to balance off the 2 divisions. And one thing I thought was really positive this year and helped the overall competition that I was talking about earlier was when they went to the 8-team setup, at least you had 2 equal divisions team-wise. And next year, I think that's really going to be positive from a scheduling standpoint. They're going to be able to move the schedule back. It's going to be more of a fall schedule, which will help us. We won't be competing as much with the summer schedule with baseball as far as our own team's concerned. And I think people relate to football as a fall sport. And so that's going to help immensely, and whether or not they can get a U.S. franchise in, I think that's going to be something that will be considered as a last resort.
Well, if it is, I mean, it may be the most idiotic thing I've ever heard. Now, they've talked about New York and Los Angeles. Can you imagine the Saskatchewan Roughriders going into play in Los Angeles, in the Los Angeles Coliseum, because the Raiders aren't going to be there, they're going to be out someplace else. 110,000 seats, there'll be 40 people sitting there. Watch, I mean, it is an inane proposition that had to be dreamt up by an idiot, because it will never come to pass. Paul from Brampton is on the line. Go ahead, Paul.
Hello, Bob.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
What do you think was the key play yesterday in the victory? I've got 2 questions.
That's a very good question, Paul. What do you think was the key play, if there was one key play?
In our game the other day?
Yeah.
I think a big play was the ball that Gilbert Renfro threw to Darrell Smith when Darrell extended himself and made a tremendous catch and almost scored and got it down to the 1-yard line. And then I thought there were a couple other key plays. Hank Alisic kicked a couple of booming punts against the wind in that first quarter that were just super things for us from a field position standpoint. And then I think just the ball control we had was, you know, it wasn't any one play, it was just the execution of the offense. I thought that was some of the key things in the game.
Yeah, there was another big play, too. It happened defensively, where it was 2nd down, a yard to go for them. And Tommy was dropped by Kulka, I think it was.
We had 2 of those plays, and I think Sellers made the other one, and it took him out of field goal range as well. So, you know, you could put your finger on a lot of plays in a game like that, and, you know, a lot of them were defensive plays. Really, the way the game was played for us, we always break our team down into offense, defense, and special teams, and I always have equal emphasis on all of them because they're all that important to winning a football game. And usually you feel that if you can play well in 2 out of those 3 areas, you've got a good chance of winning most games. What we had to do going out into Winnipeg is we had to play well in all areas to win, and that's as close a game as we've had all season to being that good in all 3 areas. We've had games this year where we've played good on defense and maybe had a good kicking game, or maybe played good on offense and had a, you know, a good defensive game, and maybe the kicking wasn't there, but we put it all together in that game, and that's what it was needed to beat a team that had such an outstanding home record and such great talent and experience, and that's why we play these games.
Paul, if you're still on the line, you said you had another question you wanted to ask. Okay, Paul is gone. Let me just pass along our number again. It's 445-1811. It's area code 416. We invite you to call us collect. But now let's see how our phone poll is going. Who will win the 75th Grey Cup game this Sunday? 86% say the Toronto Argonauts. I rather suspect a lot of people from Toronto have called in. 14% say the Eskimos. That could change because we'll continue to update the poll as we go along. And we'll be back to chat with the head coach of the Toronto Argonauts, Bob Obilovich, right after this message.
Ross Jackson. Tom Wilkinson. Ron Lancaster. Tony Gabriel. Dieter Brock. Warren Moon. Merv Fernandez. The Shenley Awards, where CFL legends are made. November 26th on TSN.
Well, there's the big one you were talking about. It was quite a play, too. Let me ask you this, because, you know, you had a big play guy in Terry Greer. Smith has been a big play guy. But they don't impress me as being similar types, are they? Or
No, Terry was a wide receiver. Darryl could play wide receiver. Darryl was a wide receiver. And we brought him there, and we converted him to a slot back because I saw things about him I liked. I think he's got a good wiggle in there, and he's got the size to where he's a load in there. They have trouble not bringing him down, and he's just such a good target in the seam, and he catches the ball in traffic so well. That's why you like him inside. Like he's going to be a big play guy for us because I've always felt that the ideal situation, like when we had Terry, we also had Tolbert that year. We won the Grey Cup, and we had Terry on one side, and E.T. was on the other side with Paul in between. And we had Tolbert that could go up the seams and create problems inside. And when they started to double cover Terry, then, you know, you had what you wanted on the other side. And as soon as we could get that kind of a matchup again, we could have a heck of a passing game. But Kenny Joyner's injury really set us back a little bit. And Darryl Smith's taken a lot of the load on his shoulders now. And he loves it that way. And our guys like to throw to him. So he's doing a super job for us.
Dave is standing by in Belleville, Ontario. Go ahead, Dave.
Yes, hello, Pat.
Hi.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate Bob Ovilovich and his football team for winning the Eastern Final yesterday. And it was also very satisfying for Toronto to beat Hamilton, because I can remember going to a hockey game last year, and Harold had his messages about the Argo fans to eat their hearts out, so I hope Harold's doing the same right now. One problem we had...
he isn't.
One problem we had down here, Bob and Pat, in the Belleville-Kingston area, is that for some reason your game was blacked out. It was not shown. It was usually shown on Channel 11 in Kingston, but for some reason it was totally blacked out, and we weren't able to watch it. And the CFL is having troubles this year, and a game as important as this one was not even shown here. So maybe Pat can look into that for us. And
Dave, I didn't know about it, but Obi did.
Yes, I tell you why I was kind of nodding my head. I went to Belleville earlier last spring. A former player of mine at the University of Ottawa who won the Heck Crichton Trophy, Paul Padden, who teaches at Quinney Secondary School. And all the fans that were there at the time were telling me that with the new TV package the league had, that they weren't going to get any games in your area. And I think this is what came out of all that. And that's something that the league has to resolve. And, I can see... why some fans would be a little disgruntled about that. Our TV package this year was really late getting put together, and I think there's still some concerns about it, but hopefully now with the schedule being more definite as to the number of teams and how they're going to operate next year and everything else, that they can correct that situation and you won't have that happen again, because I can appreciate what you're saying.
And Dave, let me tell you, you missed a great football game because the Argos really played well, and Winnipeg didn't play poorly. It was simply that the Argonauts played really their best game of the year. Andrew from Oakville is on the line. Go ahead, Andrew.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
Hi. I was wondering if what changes you're going to make to the game on Sunday, if any.
I don't think we're going to make a lot of changes. The biggest one, I'm seriously considering getting Danny Barrett back into the lineup behind Gilbert Renfro, because I think Danny's ability to run, if Gilbert's not moving the club, could be very important in this game. So other than that, we'll probably have the same lineup we've been playing with the last few weeks.
Okay, let's go quickly to Ottawa now, because Don is standing by. Go ahead, Don.
Hello, Bob.
Hi.
I'd just like to say I'm calling from your old neighborhood in Manordale.
Oh, yeah, good to hear from you.
And I'm a real diehard Argo fan.
Great.
I'm not really here to ask a question. just basically to comment that I think it's really good for the league, and especially for my ego, that Toronto was able to win the game, because, you know, all the old diehard fans with the West and the East, and then to just see a Western club come to the Eastern Conference and win it in their first year, I think would be kind of, I don't know, not very good for the league. And maybe now that the East, maybe we can get a little stronger, compete a little stronger with the West, and bring the fans back to the ball games.
Well, you know, there was a lot of conjecture and a lot of things, controversy going on when that all happened at the beginning of the season. But I really think it helped our football team, because I think it made better competition, and I honestly believe that good competition brings out the best in a person. If you're any kind of a competitor at all, you're going to respond to those kind of situations. And Winnipeg was a good football team. They've been a good football team over the last several seasons, and you know, that helped our situation. Our team may not have developed as well as it did at this point had we not had some of those tough games that we had at the latter part of the schedule. And I think it's going to be great for future games in the Eastern Division. I know there's a heck of a rivalry now developed between Winnipeg and Toronto, and it's going to help put people in the stands.
And just from a practical point of view, Don, you bring up a very good point. It was really important that Toronto win this game, because if you had Winnipeg playing Edmonton in the Grey Cup, the television ratings in the Toronto area would have been minimal in comparison to what they will be this Sunday. I mean, they'll be sky high. Anybody who knows the difference between a football and a hockey puck is going to obviously be tuned in to see if the Argos can win it again. Richard from St. John, New Brunswick is our next caller. Go ahead, Richard.
Hi, I'm calling from the hometown of Chris Skinner.
All right, well,
very good.
I'm cheering for.
He's a good football player.
Excellent, excellent. One thing, just a couple of quick points. One, I'd like to thank the CFL for having the 2 exhibition games that they've had here in the last 2 years. They're tremendously enjoyable. Certainly the game last year, the weather was terrible, and we did unfortunately see the last game that the Montreal Alouettes have played, but very entertaining. The community really got behind. It was great. The point I'd like to make, I guess, regarding landed immigrant status of the American players, I don't think we need to be swamped with American players in Canadian football, but I know that people like George Reed and Ron Lancaster, particularly, that I remember, became part of the community. They stayed in Canada and contributed just a tremendous amount. And I understand that it's difficult for the players to work and carry on a career in Canada outside of football.
Yes, it's not like it was in the old days that you're referring to, and that was actually when I was playing too, so it really was the old days. But I think that rule still would be a good rule in our league. The thing is that the rule was at that time is if a guy was a 5-year veteran and resided in the city he played for those 5 years, he could become a Canadian on the roster. Well, you know, just playing 5 years is something in itself. If you can make it through 5 years, you know, you're having a decent career already. So it's not like you'd be, I think a lot of people are afraid that the Americans are going to overcome the Canadian part of the roster, and I don't think that would happen. And I think that it would be a very positive thing in every respect, just like you were mentioning some of those players that were considered as such. I know it prolonged a guy like Gene Gaines' career immensely, who was an excellent football player.
By about 12 years.
And he did a great job, and I remember when that all came about, when they had to make their final decision on who the designated import was going to become the non-import, so to speak. And I remember Frank Clare had to make a tough decision in Ottawa between Gene and Dave Thielen. And he went with Gene, and Gene certainly didn't disappoint him. He had a great career, and because of that rule, I think Gene was well recognized for his efforts and helped promote a lot of good football.
All right, we're chatting with the head coach of the Eastern Conference champion Toronto Argonauts, Bob Obilovich. Let's see how we're making out on our phone poll. Who do you think will win the Grey Cup? Well, it's dropping the longer that Obi talks. Edmonton could be favored by the time this show is over. 70%, though, still feel the Argos will win it. And we invite you to give us a shot. Also, remember, we want to hear your phone calls from across the country at area code 416-445-1811, and we'll be back to take those calls right after this timeout. All right, Obi, let's talk about your game on Sunday against the Edmonton Eskimos. Can you go in there and play the same type of game and beat them?
Well, I think if we play with the same intensity and the overall team togetherness that we had in that game against Winnipeg, there's no question about it that we've got an excellent chance of winning the football game. But, you know, every week's a new week and it's a new opponent, and, you know, there's going to be some different things we have to contend with. And in a one-game shot, anything can happen. We've seen that happen so many times in playoffs and in Grey Cups and everything else. But I think that this matchup's an excellent matchup. I know there's a lot of mutual respect on both teams' parts for the players that each team has, and I know they're going to give the fans a good game.
Well, Rick, who is out in Winnipeg, probably didn't think yesterday's game was very good, but it sure was. Rick, come on in.
Oh, hey, Coach. How you doing?
Good.
Good, thank you.
I'd like to congratulate you on your win yesterday.
Well, I know you don't mean it, but I appreciate it.
No, actually, I do. You guys played a hell of a lot better than our Blues did.
Well, you know, I appreciate that because a lot of your fans came up to me after the ball game, and I think they sincerely meant what they said in that same light. And I think anytime you see a football game and, you know, a team plays well, and if you're an astute fan, it's hard not to feel that way. And especially when we were, you know, the underdogs, and we had a big task, a big job to overcome a good football team, and fortunately we played as well as we did to do it.
What were you going to say, Rick?
I'd like to ask you a question. What did you do to shut Tyrone Jones down?
Well, we really didn't do anything different. I think the big thing was that we had Warren Hudson in there, who I probably think is the best blocking fullback in the Canadian Football League. He does a super job one-on-one with just about anyone, including the defensive ends that are so big and strong. And Warren's a tough guy. He played the game with 20 stitches in his mouth, and he was up for the game, and he was able to nullify Jones a little better because, you know, he's just a little bigger physically. Jones is a tremendous pass rusher and a great player, and he's got some great moves out there, and Warren just did a good job at times on him. And the rest of our offensive line, and Gil Fennerty has really developed into a good blocking back. So it was just good overall execution by our offense, and fortunately we were able to keep him from making some big plays.
Yeah, personally, I think you guys were more mentally fit to play that game.
Well, I said after the game that we did our talking on the field, and I think that was probably the difference.
No, I think it's a two-week playoff, too.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, I'm predicting right now, Toronto by 14, the Grey Cup.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, I wouldn't go around saying that to a lot of people. It could cost you some bread. But anyway, Rick from Winnipeg, we thank you. And now your cousin, Rick, out in Amherst, New Brunswick. Amherst, Nova Scotia, or is it Yeah, it's Nova Scotia. Amherst is in Nova Scotia. You should have known that. All right, go ahead, Rick.
Sure, show.
Rick from Amherst, Nova Scotia, go ahead.
See,
he may be out fishing right now. You know that?
You scared him off.
Okay, let's talk about the Edmonton Eskimos. They were really thrown off their game a year ago by Hamilton, who put a fantastic amount of pressure on Dunnigan. Is that the game plan from you guys? I mean, let's get in his face as much as we can. What's the game plan?
That's always a game plan of your defense. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is or what game. You're going to hope that you can do exactly that and disrupt them and keep them from being effective. And, you know, like I said, the game they played last year was one of the most dominant games I've seen in a Grey Cup game. Their defense totally dominated Edmonton in that game. And, you know, Dunnigan just didn't have a chance, really. Heck, he was trying to do what he could do, but they were swarming all over him.
See, people will say, well, then why can you not do the same thing? But Heck Poitier is back playing where he's supposed to be playing, and they had to shift the other guy over from the other side of the line. So they've got the line that they want in there. They didn't have the offensive line that they wanted a year ago. Are you, you know, you were very impressive yesterday moving the ball in the third quarter. But it wasn't the greatest offensive display you're ever going to see in a football game, but you did what you had to do.
That's correct, and if your defense is playing as good as we did in that game, and hopefully we can continue to play, then, you know, that's about all you have to do, is as long as you control the ball and get your points when you should get them. I think that our offense will come into its own once we get the experience at quarterback that you have to have. You got to still keep in mind that those guys that are playing that position for us haven't played a lot of games. Compare their experience to Matt Dunnigan's, for instance. And then look at our receiving core. You know, Darryl and Paul being the only real veteran. Darryl just came into his own this year. It's his second year in the league. You know, we've got a lot of youth there, and the timing and the coordination and the communication between the passer and receiver is so important, and that's why you see the great communication between Matt Dunnigan and Brian Kelly. I mean, they've got a great thing going there, and that doesn't just happen overnight.
Okay, Sam from Windsor, Ontario. Go ahead, Sam.
How you doing, Pat?
Good, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to congratulate Coach Bob on his victory.
Thank you.
Okay, a little while back, Leo Cahill said he would welcome the Toronto Argonauts to play the Buffalo Bills. Now, would you welcome a CFL, NFL exhibition game, and let's say the proceeds went to some charity, as to maybe help build up the CFL again?
They used to try and do that years ago, just before I came into the Canadian Football League in the early 60s, and I think the problem is trying to adjust to the two different sets of rules and that type of thing, and I think that's why they stopped doing it. But
they used to do half and half.
Yeah, and I think that they weren't that, the games weren't that bad, but there is a big difference in the type of game that we both play, and I think it could be a lot of fun and could create some interest from that standpoint, but you know, when Leo said that, I think he said that before they brought Cornelius Bennett in there. So maybe he doesn't mean that now.
But anyway, Ovi's right, of course. They used to do it. I can remember seeing the New York Giants play in Ottawa, and the Cardinals played here and everything else. But I'd be more concerned about making sure that we had 8 teams in the CFL next year as opposed to worrying about the preseason games. But we thank Sam for his call, and let's update our phone poll right now. Who do you think is going to win the Grey Cup game on Sunday? 68% say the Argonauts, 32% say Edmonton. There's the number for you to call, and we've still got a few minutes to record your opinion, and we'll come back to continue our chat with Bob Obilovich after this time out. We've only got a few minutes, and we want to get as many phone calls in as possible for head coach Bob Obilovich of the Argonauts. So let's quickly go to Saskatoon. Randy is standing by. Go ahead, Randy.
Hello, Bob.
Hi, how are you?
Pretty good. You mentioned earlier that the Argonauts are looking for players that are suited for the CFL.
Right.
How do you tell whether a player is suited for the CFL?
I'll tell you what, that's an important thing about being a good personnel guy for our league, and I've always prided myself on being a guy that could find those type of players because, as I said earlier, we're not going to compete with the NFL for a guy for the money. If it comes down to them wanting a guy bad enough, we can forget about it.
But give them an example, Obi. I mean,
well, a guy like Willie Pless, for instance, he's an undersized linebacker, 215 pounds. There's no way the NFL would even look at the guy. But he's a good enough player that can go from sideline to sideline. He's exciting to watch. He's a great little athlete. He wouldn't have a place to play if it wasn't for our style of ball in the Canadian Football League. Put him up on the line against those mammoth linemen with 4 downs and ask him to stand in there and battle it out nose to nose, you know, it would be a mismatch. But let him play our game and be the kind of player that he is, and now you got a guy that people like to watch perform. And Darnell Clash, Reggie Pleasant, they're little corners that are quick and aggressive and on our field cover a lot of ground. Gerald Bayless is a 245-pound defensive nose guard at about 6 feet. Just not big enough to be an NFL-type guy, but he's so quick and such an exciting guy to watch come off the ball and pursue, and he makes plays going around the block as well as anybody I've ever seen up here, and those are the kind of guys we look for that we think are best suited. The NFL has stolen a little bit of our thunder in recent years with the little running backs and receivers, the little guys we used to really thrive on. Now they're taking those guys, and years ago they wouldn't even look at them.
Morris with the Giants would never have gotten a look
that's right.
6, 7 years ago.
Exactly. In fact, I laughed. You mentioned Morris. I was in Ottawa as an assistant coach.
He was at Syracuse.
And I had him on our negotiation list. And I'd watched him on film at Syracuse. I used to go down to Syracuse every year when I was an assistant coach and watch film. We had him, the great little back, Brooks from Auburn. They were little guys. And we had Will Height at Denver. They all turned out to be #1 draft. And Darren Nelson. 4 of them I thought were undersized guys that they might overlook, and they all became #1 draft picks. So it goes to show what I know.
Peter from Scarborough is on the line. Go ahead, Peter.
Yes, sir. My associates and I were just discussing, A, congratulations on the win on the weekend. I knew what was going to happen. I knew it. I knew the Double Blue were going to do it. B, I'm dying to know, I almost had a coronary when I heard at the beginning of the game, Conjemi was backing up. Why? He's not really that proven as Barrett is. And B, who's starting, or who's going to back up on Sunday next?
Well, Barrett is going to, he said.
Yes. Well, we've been rotating those quarterbacks all year based on you know, how they've played throughout the season and who we're playing against, because there seems to have been some cycles and some trends that have happened this year with the situation. We had injuries to Gilbert and injuries to John, and then Danny started playing well, and it seemed like against certain teams, different ones would play better for some reason or another, and so we just kind of used that as our guidelines as to what we should do. And we just felt that if Gilbert wasn't going to move the club against Winnipeg, we thought that John's ability to read the blitzes and with his intelligence in spotting things and getting the ball away quickly, that he would make more plays at the quarterback position than Danny would in that particular game. And that's not to take anything away from Danny, because you know, he's done an outstanding job, but they're just different styles, and that's how we've tried to make our decisions all season.
Yeah, it just seems that Conjemi has not done well for the whole season.
Well, except did he not play well in the Winnipeg game?
Oh, he did a great job bringing us back. We almost
but that
beat
was the
Winnipeg.
team they were playing, though.
We almost beat Winnipeg in the first ball game. Danny had trouble in that game. If you recall, Danny got hit twice from behind and fumbled, and they scored touchdowns on him, and that was the difference in the game, really, because John came back like gangbusters in the second half. We were on the 12-yard line with 5 seconds to go in the ball game, and we had a chance to tie it up, and John did all that. So those are some of the things we had to think about, and you can't please everyone all the time, and they're the kind of decisions that make it tough for a head coach. But you know, you do what you think is in the best interest of your football team, and our quarterbacks have really responded to the way we've handled them, and they all feel like they're contributing, and it's been a great situation for us this year.
Okay, we're going to quickly go to Sherbrooke, Quebec. Graham is standing by. Go ahead, Graham.
Hello, Pat. I think you got a great show.
Ah, thank you.
It says I'm from Sherbrooke, Quebec, but actually I'm hometown Mimico, Ontario, down on the lakeshore, Royal York Road.
We're well familiar with it, Graham.
Okay, I wanted to ask OB, what can he contribute to the big turnaround with the Argonauts this year?
Well, I think the big thing is that we got some new personnel, better players, and you know, the quarterback situation's been more stable this year than it has the last couple of years. You know, we kept counting on Conridge, and as you know, Conridge kept getting hurt on us, and that it kept always putting more pressure on us. And then, you know, he was out longer than you'd want, and then his last year he just wasn't as mobile as he used to be, and so we had to start from scratch again, especially when JC kind of pulled the plug on us. And having those quarterbacks from day one and having them in our camp right from the onset, even though they were young, that was important. The year that we had all the problems at quarterbacking, we went through about 15 different guys, and you can't do that during the season.
Obi, I just want to get one final call in. From Edmonton, Frank is on the line. Go ahead, Frank.
How are you?
Good.
That was a good game yesterday.
Yeah, they played well.
Yeah. I was at the game in Edmonton, and it's the only bad game I've seen the team play all year.
The first half, we did play poorly the first half, and give Edmonton a lot of credit. They played extremely well. I thought Damon Ellen was outstanding that night, and they had a couple big plays in the first half, the punt return, and then the real play that really killed us, put us in a big hole, was the last play of the half, especially after they said we didn't score a touchdown on a pass that Darrell Smith caught, and we thought it was a touchdown, and then we don't get the field goal, and not only that, they block it and score a touchdown. So that was the worst half of football we've played all season, and you know, Edmonton had a lot to do with it.
Obi, the game's on Sunday. We'll all be looking forward to it. as usual, it's always nice to see you, and it's great to have you on the show. I know the fans enjoyed it. Good luck, and we hope it's a good game.
I'm sure it will be, Pat. It was a pleasure being with you again.
Thank you. Head coach Bob Obilovich of the Toronto Argonauts and his club plays the Edmonton Eskimos Sunday in the 75th Grey Cup game. Who do you think is going to win? That was the question we asked on our phone poll tonight. 69% think the Toronto Argonauts are going to do it. 31% feel the Edmonton Eskimos. It should be a great matchup because you've got a super defense against one of the best offenses in the CFL. I want to thank you very much for joining us on our unusual hour here tonight. We'll be back after the hockey game next Monday. And don't forget, if there's somebody that you'd like to see on our show, drop us a note here. It's your call, 1155 Leslie Street in Don Mills, M3C 2J6, and we'll do everything we can to accommodate you. Thanks very much for joining us. I'm Pat Marsden. Good night.